Today we're talking about traffic signs, road signs, those instruments along our roadways that give you information to be a safer, smarter driver. All right, so we're talking about reading road signs. One of the things that makes reading road signs easier is they're broken into classifications: regulatory signs, construction signs, lane designation signs, school signs, and other kinds of signs as well. And there are, as if Epic shows up, he was here this morning, he will tell you there are two different classifications of signs. There are those that we have here in North America, and in Europe and other parts of the world they have the Vienna system, which is slightly different. It's still more or less the same, and it's not much of a transition if you go to Europe and you're driving in Europe. A lot of the signs tend to be triangular in shape with a red border for their cautionary signs and whatnot, but they do have different traffic signs, so know that if you go to Europe. The three ways that signs communicate information is the shape of the sign: rectangular, diamond, triangle, inverted triangle. Some people will argue with me that there's no such thing as an inverted triangle. I would say different, that there is such a thing as an inverted triangle, and a yield sign is an inverted triangle, but I digress. Octagons, pentagons, these are all different shapes of traffic signs. The color of the traffic sign: cautionary signs, for example, are yellow with black writing or symbols thereon. These are construction signs. They have orange backgrounds with black lettering and symbols on them. And so these are the three ways that traffic signs convey information. As well, classifications of traffic signs: regulatory signs, school signs, cautionary signs, lane control signs, and object marker signs, which are my favorites. And object marker signs fall under the umbrella of cautionary signs, but instead of being diamond in shape, these are rectangular, tall and skinny. So rectangular signs, the root word of regulatory is regulation, which means it is the law and must be obeyed. So stop signs in the States, it's going to be railway crossing signs. Yield signs, speed signs with white backgrounds and black lettering on them are all regulatory signs. School signs are generally going to be pentagon. A pentagon is five-sided. It is the house that you drew when you were in kindergarten, and it indicates school in area. If there is a speed sign under it, then it indicates a school speed zone sign. School speed zone signs are in effect for the time that is indicated, oftentimes there on the sign. If not, it's 8 to 5 during the day and only when school is in session. So if it's the summertime, unless there are signs indicating that summer school is there, I know that some municipalities and some local jurisdictions will have specific laws, but for the most part, it's when school is in session. Lane control signs, these are important when you're driving larger vehicles or you're in cities that are kind of patchwork together by urban planners, and you have to pay attention to which lane you need to be in to go in the direction that you want to go. And then, as I said, I have object marker signs. These are my favorite signs. When I was trying to get my driving instructor's license and I was upgrading because I had a D license at the time in Ontario. They have the alphabet classifications of licenses in Ontario. A D license is basically a 5-ton truck. It's a straight truck. And I was upgrading, and so I was going to get a school bus license. And part of the school bus training in Ontario, you have to take a defensive driving course. And I thought, oh, well, that can't be too hard. And went into the defensive driving course, and this old crusty driving instructor walks in, he scribbles on the board, he says, "Name the 5 signs that warn you of hazards and obstructions on our roadway." And of course I went, well, I don't know. How can I not know? And of course, 3 of the 4 signs were hazard obstruction signs, and the 4 signs were construction signs, which warned you of fixed objects you could potentially hit on the roadway. So object marker signs are the hash marks. Corey will put up the video for you on those. And pass left, pass right, or pass left and right. If you come up with a traffic island and there's a slip lane to the right and you can proceed straight through, then you're going to pass either left or right of the traffic sign. The way you know on which side to pass is you pour a kettle of water on top of the sign, and the side that it runs off on the hash marks is the side of the object marker sign that you pass. They're going to be found on concrete islands, bridge abutments, fixed objects, anything you could potentially hit along our roadways. So take note of those signs. And they are also the most prolific signs on our roadways. Okay, now that I've mentioned them to you, you are going to see those signs absolutely everywhere. Regulatory signs, these are the law. Stop signs, speed signs in the United States, railway crossing signs, and brake check signs for those of you driving commercial vehicles. You must stop at a brake check in the mountains and check your brakes. If you're driving a vehicle, pulling a caravan, pulling a camper trailer, pulling a boat, utility trailer, whatnot, you need to pull into the brake check areas and you need to check your brakes and do a pre-trip inspection and make sure that you get down the hill safely, because brake fade is one of the limitations of any braking system, regardless of whether it's hydraulic brakes or whether it's air brakes. The steepness of the grade is going to be indicated as a cautionary sign. Now, these cautionary signs could potentially save your life, and I'll talk a little bit more about that more. It tells you how steep the hill is. Okay, so the higher the number, the steeper the hill. Most of them are 8, 9, 10, 11, 12% grades. Okay, that's a pretty moderate grade, depending on the length of the grade. Now, if it's more than a mile, more than a kilometer, there's going to be a sign underneath telling you how long that hill is. If it's longer than a mile and in the double digits, so it's 10, 12, 14% grade, you want to gear down and you want to get the transmission to help you to brake on the way down that hill. If you get into the 18 to 20% grades, which I have seen, make sure that you're definitely geared down to get down that hill safely when you're driving. All right, regulatory signs, cautionary signs. As I said, some of these will save your life, some of these not so much. Okay, so it comes with experiences to figure out which ones you need to pay attention to and which ones you can say, oh, okay. But as a new driver, I would caution you and say you need to pay attention to all the signs. So that sign on the bottom, if you come up to that and you see it on the roadways, what you need to do is you need to slow down to 45 miles per hour, because until you get some experience and know the roadway, this will keep you safe. You're driving a larger vehicle, you need to know and have burned into your brain the maximum height of a vehicle on public highways is 13 feet 6 inches or 4.15 meters. If it's less than 13 feet 6 inches, if you come up on this sign and it says 11.8, you can't drive under there with a big truck or a bus or a trailer that you may be pulling. So know that it's 12 feet 6 inches is the minimum maximum height for your vehicle. It's the minimum height that you can go under for an overhead bridge or obstruction. And if you have the least doubt in your mind, make sure that you stop, get out and look, even if you're backing up traffic. Okay, I've had to do that a few times in my driving career. Larger vehicles, destination signs, you can figure out how far it is and how long it's going to take you to get where you're going. If you were driving, for example, from Toledo, Ohio to Cincinnati, Ohio, it is 213 miles. If you were doing 60 miles an hour, you know it's going to take you 3.5 hours to drive 213 miles, depending on traffic and if everything is ideal conditions. All right, know that, and you can figure that out. You can make pit stops, breaks, meal stops, fuel stops. That was the other one I was trying to think of. I had a brain cramp there. Marion, so if you have a steep grade, do you use the S on the gear level on the HRV or just use brakes on its own? Marion, for you, you're going to be fine with just using leave it in D for drive and just use the brakes. If you're pulling a load or you've got a heavy vehicle or whatnot, then you want to use some sort of assistance with gearing down and going down the hill and whatnot. Overhead signs, construction signs match the speed of the flow of traffic. I do advocate that if you have your license, keep up with the flow of traffic. It will make you more predictable on the roadways. Now, in the United States, as a rule of thumb, 5 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. Here in Canada, it's 10 kilometers over the posted speed limit. You will not be pulled over by police, okay, in most situations. Excessive speeders, they have many excessive speeders, and they can go out and police these people, and they will find them. And they're not targeting out-of-state people, okay? When they're using the radar gun and they're targeting you and checking your speed, you are too far away for them to police officers to actually read the license plate. So they're just pulling you over because you are going too fast. All right, lane usage signs. These are often in concert with road marking signs on the pavement, and it's important to pay attention to these. If you have 2 lanes turning to the left and you're on a driver's test, you want to be in the right lane. If you're driving a larger vehicle, you want to be in the outside lane. So if you're turning left, you're going to be in the right lane. If you're turning right and they're multi-lanes, you want to be in the left lane with a large vehicle to compensate for off-tracking. And you'll need to pay attention to these signs in goofy areas where the highways and whatnot do not line up when you're driving, and you want to know where you're going and whatnot. Mile marker signs, okay? The one sign that will increase your defensive driving on the roadways. Mile markers, for the most part, will line up with the exit numbers. So, for example, if you're on the highway, the interstate, and you know that you're getting off at exit 275 and you're at 270, you know that you have 5 miles, 5 kilometers up the road, and you can start moving over to the right lane in preparation for getting off the highway or interstate. These will keep you safe, and I will give you a story about this. Years ago, I was teaching a student. We were on a highway trip with the big truck. We went to Kamloops, British Columbia here, and we went up the hill, and he was behind a set of Super Bs, which is loaded out 140,000 pounds. Well, of course, the big truck was going slower than him, and he said, "Oh, do I have time to pass the big truck in front?" We were at exit 275, mile marker 275, and he was getting off at 270, and I said, "Well, how far is that?" He didn't know, because he didn't know what mile markers were. And I said, "Well, you've got 5 kilometers. Can you pass that truck in 5 kilometers?" He said, "Yes." And so it's going to make you a safer, smarter driver on the roadways if you're taking note of the exit numbers. And it's the same thing when we talk about long trips. And this morning, we had a woman here from Ohio, and she was going to make a trip to Florida. Take some time, plan out on Google Maps where you're going to stop, get the exit number, and that way you're going to know, I got 100 miles and I'm going to get off and I'm going to have a meal and I'm going to take a break, and there's a park, playgrounds, and those types of things there. So it will really help you out. Now, most states in the US, interstates, state highways all have mile markers, and the mile markers and the exit numbers will be one and the same thing. New York State likes to be different. So if you're on Interstate 90 in New York State, know that the exit numbers are going to be different than the mile marker numbers. There's a few other places in the States, but for the most part, the exit numbers and the mile markers are going to be one and the same thing. So good luck in your driver's test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Colton, I could be wrong, but I'm going off of what I know from elevator fan, school buses, but not necessarily all buses. Do you have to stop at railway tracks? Elevator fan, no, not if you're driving a coach. You only have to stop at railway crossings if you're driving a school bus. That's the only time you have to stop at railway crossings. Kay, I have a driver's test tomorrow in California. Anything you could tell me on what I should do and what I shouldn't do? Kay, yes, driver's test. 4 components of any driver's test: space management, speed management, observation, and communication. Space management. If you're not near anything, it's less likely that you're going to hit something. So 2 to 3 second following distance at all times. Stopping in traffic 1 vehicle length back from the car in front of you, and your landmark for that is to be able to see the tires in front making clear contact with the pavement. Now, you're in California, so you're going to have cyclists, pedestrians, those types of things. 3 feet minimum from pedestrians, cyclists, and other vulnerable road users, okay? If you can move over to the other lane, even better, okay? Make sure that when you change lanes, you signal, mirror signal, shoulder check over, and then mirror signal, shoulder check when you move back into your lane as well, if the way is clear, obviously. Speed management, flow of traffic, or the posted speed limit, whichever is less, and understand the differences in speed between you and a pedestrian, you and a bicycle, those types of things, because your space is going to shrink a lot faster when you're driving. Observation, forward scanning pattern. Far down the road, check your center mirror, far down the road, instrument panel, far down the road, and then your side mirrors. And observation, your observation is tied into speed control. If you're not adjusting your speed every 10 to 15 seconds, that tells the driving examiner that you are not scanning properly, because you're not checking your instrument panel every now and again, adjusting your speed accordingly. Observation, backing up, 360-degree scan around the vehicle. Make sure that you have complete awareness around your vehicle. Looking out through the back window, you can use a camera, a backup camera. You can use your side mirrors, but for the most part, you're going to be looking out through the back window when you're reversing. slow speed maneuvers in the state of California, backing along a curb for 50 feet. When you're backing along the curb, make sure you stay out 3 feet so that you have room to maneuver, because know that if you want the back end, if you're backing up and you want the back end of the car to go that way, the front end of the car is going to go in towards the curb. So you need some wiggle room there. So you need approximately 3 feet between your vehicle and the curb to be able to back up successfully. Communication, 5 ways that we communicate with other traffic on the roadway. We talked about this in the introduction. Position of the vehicle or position of the road user on the roadway. You're coming up to a crosswalk, there's a pedestrian approaching the crosswalk, there's a high probability that he or she is going to step out into the crosswalk and cross the roadway. If a vehicle is in the left turn lane, there's a high probability that they're going to turn left even if they don't have their signals on. And if you're following a vehicle, it's moving to the right and it's slowing down, but it doesn't have its signal on, but it's slowing down as it approaches the intersection, there's a high probability that vehicle is going to turn right. Position of the vehicle, lights and signals, eye contact with vulnerable road users and pedestrians standing at the corner. You're not sure what they're doing, get eye contact, and then use your hand gestures. All 5 fingers. Don't tell somebody that they're number 1, especially on a driver's test. And the last way we communicate is use of the horn. Use the horn sparingly when you're driving, especially on a road test, okay? Horns in North America are seen as a sign of aggression, so use your horn sparingly. So, space management, speed management, observation, and communication. Where to stop at stop signs and traffic lights, behind the stop line, behind the crosswalk or sidewalk. If those 2 conditions don't exist, then at the edge of the road just before entering into the box of the intersection. That's what you need to do, and all you need to do for your driver's test is take away the driving examiner's right to fail you. Nothing less, nothing more. Demonstrate that you have due care and control of the vehicle in changing traffic conditions. You're going to be great. Okay. TL, at a rail crossing, what behavior should you expect from a cyclist in front of you? Depends on the rail crossing, TL. I know that if there is traffic around me and I am riding my bicycle, I'm generally going to get out of the saddle and I'm going to try and make myself bigger, and I'm going to slow down and I'm going to get my feet on the pedals. And the reason that I do that is to try and raise up my center of balance so I've got more control of the bicycle, because you're going to be bouncing over there. And the other piece is, if your wheels get caught in the tracks, which I have had happen to me on my bicycle, I want to be up so I can go over the handlebars and I can roll and get back up. Because I've had, like I said, I've got caught in railway crossings, and railway crossings are pretty bumpy, so I don't want to be having my butt in the seat when I'm going over that railway crossing. So know that cyclists are probably going to slow down. Experienced cyclists are going to get their butt out of the seat and they're going to start standing up and put their weight on the pedals. Now I know what I was going to say. The reason that you're standing up to put your weight on the pedals as opposed to your weight on the seat is you're lowering the center of gravity in the bicycle. And I know that sounds weird, that you're standing up on the pedals, but you're lowering your center of gravity, because you are lowering the center of gravity on the bicycle, because you're moving the weight from the seat on the bicycle, which is here, to the pedals, which are down here. That's what you're doing. You're lowering the center of gravity. So that's why good cyclists are going to stand up. They're probably going to slow down a little bit as they're proceeding across the railway tracks. And if the tracks are on an angle at all, depending on the angle of them, as a cyclist, as an experienced cyclist, I'm going to try and move my bicycle so that I hit the tracks at a 90-degree angle. So I may move to the left or right, so expect that as well if you're following a cyclist and he or she is going over the railway tracks. TL, great, but drivers must yield as cyclists have the right to use the full lane. Yes, they do. Colton, well, in the U.S., that's how laws get passed. I'm not sure how Canada does that. Okay, railway crossing signals can fail at any time. Yes, they can, as with many other traffic control signals and whatnot. Cyclists must cross tracks at 90 degrees. Yes, they do, TL, but not always. The other piece about it is, if you have any off-road experience like I do in riding bicycles, and as I said, I've ridden bicycles all over the world. I've done bicycle tours in Tasmania, Cape Breton Island, Newfoundland, Scotland, and I've hit tracks, and if you hit them at speed, you don't have to hit them at 90 degrees. You just lift up the front wheel, make sure the front wheel clears the railway tracks, and you just go over. So if you've got speed, so if the railway tracks are at the bottom of a hill, for example, I'm not hitting them at 90 degrees. I'm just getting my front wheel up so that it will clear over top and not get caught in any of the instructions, and I'm just going over. So no, I'm not always going to be hitting it at 90 degrees, depending on how much speed I have. Excellent. Corey's put up the must-watch videos for passing your driver's test. That includes 4 skills that you need to have, which I just talked about. Speed management, space management, observation, and communication. Yes, those are the 4 skills that you need to have for your driver's test. Talked about those. And then as well, automatic fails, most common mistakes on a driver's test. And there's one more video in there, which I cannot recall. Oh, yes, 10 chance events that may happen on a driver's test. Chance events that could potentially happen on a driver's test are encountering a yellow light. Do I stop? Do I go? Do I stop? Do I go? That is the decision you're going to make. The way that you know about yellow lights is your vehicle will not stop in its own length. So if you were 1 vehicle length from the stop line, then you're going to have to proceed through. But know and keep in mind that you're going to have awareness about what traffic is behind you, because if you lock up the brakes and you're very close to the intersection, the car behind you may rear end you. And lots of people, lots of smart drivers over the years have come back and said that to me. Oh, if I stop and get locked up, the person behind me is going to rear end me. If the person behind you is going to rear end you, you made a mistake in observation a half a block back because you were not paying attention to the traffic that was following you at the time as you approached the intersection. So coming back to traffic signs and what we're talking about in terms of traffic signs will also help you to locate intersections. And the reason that it is important to locate intersections, more than 40% of crashes happen at intersections. And intersections are where you are most likely to encounter vulnerable road users sharing road space with you. In high-income countries, the United States, Canada, Spain, France, the UK, traffic fatalities that are pedestrians and other vulnerable road users make up 25% of traffic deaths. In low-income countries, all the countries in Africa, Asia and whatnot, India and whatnot, pedestrians and other vulnerable road users make up 50% of traffic fatalities. So know that. Okay, scanning and moving through intersections safely. Corey's put up that video for you. So have a look at that. And so traffic signs, traffic lights, stop signs, yield signs, all these signs are going to help you to locate intersections and significantly reduce your chances of being involved in a crash. And that's what we're talking about in terms of traffic signs. Read traffic signs. Know the different classifications of traffic signs. Know regulatory signs. School signs, cautionary signs, lane designation signs. These, reading the information, gleaning the information from these signs, and I know that sometimes it will be on your GPS display as well. They will, stop sign ahead, traffic light ahead, intersection ahead, whatnot. If you have a quick glance at it, it's like, oh, I'm coming up to an intersection. You can look down and at the intersection. Again, the technology, as we've talked about before, GPS, backup cameras, blind spot detectors. These technologies are just a backup to improve on driving skills that you already have in place to keep yourself safe when you're driving. But GPS, cautionary signs, traffic lights, stop signs, yield signs, all these signs, all this infrastructure will help you to locate intersections and reduce your chances of being involved in a crash with vulnerable road users. And we talked about this last week when we talked about left-hand turns and the complexity of left-hand turns, keeping track of the traffic light, the oncoming traffic, and pedestrians on the cross street, which have the right of way. So you can take your road signs, your traffic lights, and road markings, and all this combined together is going to give you massive amounts of information that will allow you to map and track intersections as you're approaching them and identify those road users that are potentially going to cross your path of travel when you're driving. Epic, my friend. Love the quizzes and community. Speaking of road signs, there's this one commonly seen in Illinois, New York City, Massachusetts, and Pennsylvania. Pay by plate, and they usually come with a warning: failure to pay toll results in suspension. Yes, so there are lots of people who do not pay the tolls, and we were talking about this morning as well. And if you're planning a long road trip, this is another piece that you need to identify. And when you type your route into Google, it will tell you whether you're going to be on toll roads, and you might want to do a little bit of investigation about this before you take off on your drive. If you're going through parts of New Jersey, around Washington DC, through Chicago, Oklahoma has a toll road as well, and figure out the cost of the toll before you get there. Last year when we drove from my parents' place in southwestern Ontario near London to Montreal, we took the toll road on 417 north of Toronto, and east to west, west to east, back and forth was $90. $90. And you're on the road for about an hour. And I thought, that's just highway robbery. $90. I thought that was an incredible amount of money. So in future, this summer when I'm traveling here from Vernon and I'm driving to my parents' place in Ontario, as I told you, I bought my mom a van, so I'm driving the van back, and I'm gonna be driving through Chicago. So there's toll roads in Chicago, and of course I'm gonna do a bit of investigative work before I get there to figure out the cost of the tolls going through Chicago, because sometimes it's faster just to take the toll. Just pay the toll. I mean, if it's $5 or $10, just pay the toll. It was the same thing when we were in Sydney last fall. We just took the toll road. I mean, it was only $10. I mean, $10 is very reasonable for a toll road, especially if you're going through a city or whatnot. So sometimes it's just easier just to pay the toll. Marion, talking about observation, I spotted an ambulance coming behind me with lights and sirens trying to weave through traffic. My group of traffic all pulled over at the same time to let him pass. Awesome, and that is very cool indeed. TL, I will ask again, what behavior of a pedestrian requires drivers to yield to pedestrians? In U.S. law, it's clear. Nobody knows, though. U.S. law, it is clear. Yeah, you have to, TL, you have to give way to pedestrians. Matter of fact, anybody that crosses your path of travel, because the right of way is not taken, it is given. And if a pedestrian just recklessly steps out front of the road, you're not gonna make them into a hood ornament. You're gonna stop, right, and prevent having a crash, and then smile, give them a little wave, and in that very sarcastic, dripping voice, you say, "Well, have a nice day. Go and have your crash somewhere else." Not out loud, of course, especially if the driving examiner's in the car with you. So, yes. TL, not true. A driver approaching any vehicle on front of them must yield. Okay. TL, to clarify that on that question you're asking, anytime a pedestrian is crossing your path of travel, give way. Anytime that anybody is crossing your path of travel, whether it's a pedestrian, wheelchair, e-scooters, e-bicycles, we were talking about that now this morning as a new road user group, one wheels, all these goofy contraptions that have electric motors on them that, young people are running up and down the roadways and whatnot. TL, in North Carolina, speed limit signs are located 250 yards from every major crossing or intersection. Look for them to confirm your speed. And see, that is another thing. Thank you for that information. I did not know that information. 250 yards from every major crossing or intersection. So if you see a speed sign, you know that you are very close to an intersection, and 250 yards is a good distance to map and track road users at that intersection. Because, as I said, more than 40% of crashes happen at intersections, and this is the place that you are most likely to encounter vulnerable road users. So at intersections, map and track the intersection. What kind of intersection is it? Is it a simple, conventional intersection, crossroad intersection? Is it a minor road meets a major road and there are stop signs on the major road that intersect with the minor road? Is it a complex intersection with traffic lights, slip lanes, left turning lanes, advanced turning lights, and those types of things? What kind of intersection is it? Where are the pedestrians? And as we were talking about last week in terms of doing left turns at complex intersections, stay back so you're at the edge of the intersection. Do not move into the intersection. Stay back at the edge of the intersection. That way you keep hazards and obstructions in front of your vehicle. And also, by staying back and having hazards and obstructions in front of you, you can check the signs at the intersection, right? Same thing. Making a right on a red light. You can, in many places, make a right turn on a red light, but you have to stop back at the stop line. If you come to a complete stop first, as is required by law, and you're sitting there, you can look through the intersection and locate and see if there are right turn prohibited on red light signs, okay? Because you don't want to turn contrary to a sign, especially on a driver's test. If you do that on a driver's test, you will not be successful. Action contrary to a sign, okay? TL, yes, the speed signs are after the intersection. Oh, okay, after the intersection. I thought they were before the intersection. Misinterpreted that there. TL in crosswalk, when a pedestrian indicates crossing by stepping into the crosswalk, drivers must yield. Yes, and I am of the opinion that all crosswalks should have some form of flashing light or some other indicator to traffic. We have some crosswalks here in British Columbia, and I'm thinking of one specifically on the way to where I train for jiu-jitsu. There have been numerous times I've come down there and traffic has been moving through there, or there's a car sitting there and they're flashing their lights. You cannot see the pedestrians, okay? So this is a note to pedestrians and car drivers. Many times, if the vehicles are not stopping at the crosswalk, it's not because the drivers are being malicious. The odd time they're being malicious, but for the most part, they are not being malicious. It's the simple fact that they cannot see the pedestrians. Because if I'm at a crosswalk and I know there's pedestrians there and they're waiting to cross, I'm going to stop for them. I'm not going to be malicious and just plow through the crosswalk. If I don't stop, and I've had that problem at crosswalks, especially at night when you can't see the pedestrians, know that as a pedestrian that wait for the traffic and ensure that they are stopped. Double, triple check. As I've taught my kids for all the years that we've been walking around, never trust cars. I love cars. I love teaching people how to drive, but don't trust drivers when you step out into the roadway, because you are no match for a 3,000-pound vehicle moving at speed. And I mean, if you're driving a car and you hit a pedestrian and they come up over the hood into the windshield, how bad? I mean, you're just going to feel awful. Absolutely awful if you hit a car. When my daughter was little, there's an ice cream shop where my mom lives in Wingham, and my daughter was like super excited. She came out of the shop and she was getting ice cream, and I think Nan had her ice cream across the road, and she ran out into the road. Oh, it was raining, that's what it was, and she didn't want to get wet, and she just like ran into the side of a car that was slowing down to stop at the stop sign right at the intersection. The woman in the car just freaked out. And my daughter just basically hit the side of the car, and she bounced off the side of the car and fell down. And she was fine. She was fine. But the woman in the car just about had a coronary. It scared her and terrified her so bad. So think about that when you're driving, if that happens. So, most drivers are not malicious. They're not going to do something on purpose. TL in North Carolina, 15% of all crashes and deaths are involved VRUs. What's a VRU? Don't know that short form. Speed signs are after the intersections. Elevator fan, if you're taking a long road trip, consider booking a hotel ahead of time. Elevator fan, don't consider book a hotel ahead of time. Make sure that you do book a hotel ahead of time, especially in the summertime. Now that we're coming into June, July, and August, you don't book a hotel, you're probably not going to get one when you get to where you're going. 3 years ago when we drove across Canada, we came back and we were in a hotel in Calgary. I had sat down the week before. I had called all the hotels. I had booked rooms for us. And I knew how far we were going to travel every day. And we were in the hotel, and there was a gentleman there, and he was looking for a hotel, and he says, I've been to like a dozen hotels. Nobody has any space. So know that hotels are going to be very busy in the summertime. So make sure that you, in fact, do book your hotels ahead of time and know your destination. Now, if you're driving along and you're touring and you're not really paying attention and those types of things to what's going on, not paying attention. Of course you're paying attention, but you're sightseeing. That was what I was trying to say. You're going to do 200, 300 miles a day, which is 300 to 400 kilometers a day, okay? If that's a lazy kind of sightseeing tourist trip. Now, if you're head down, bum up, and you're just giving her, you're going to do 500 or 600 miles a day. Okay, and it takes 8 to 12 hours to do 500 to 600 miles a day, depending on how fast you're driving. So know that when you're planning your trips, and that way you can figure out where you need to book your hotels so you can get a decent hotel. And the other piece is it helps out the hotel owners and those types of things. Same thing when I was driving buses. We had a bus breakdown and I had to get fuel and several other things. You know, you don't drive up to a restaurant and drop 45 people on them all at once. You give them some warning that you're coming in. So, you know, I got the number for the hotel, or the restaurant rather, the stop. And I said, listen, I'm coming in with the bus. I got 45 people on the bus. We're coming in. Okay. Then that way they're ready for you when you get there. It's not like, oh my God, now what do we do? Right. So, Colton, why book a hotel when I can sleep on an air mattress in a truck bed? Much cheaper. Colton, that's great for young people. I got money and I'm going to sleep in a hotel. But I hear you, Colton. You know, especially now that we have inflation, one of the resorts here that we have, Sparkling Hill, very nice resort. We used to go there, and you know, it was a couple $100, $300 for a night. I was looking the other day at this, and now on the weekends, now get you, it's on the weekends, the same rooms that we got before are now $850. Most hotels in Canada now are $300 a night. So when you're talking about an air mattress and a truck bed, I think to myself, yes, yes, I will sleep on an air mattress, because once you get to $300 a night for a hotel, it better be five star for $300 a night, because I've been in hotels all over the world, China, UK, Australia, the United States, here in Canada, and when you comes right down to it, it's a room with a bed in it and a toilet. Not in the room, it's in the toilet's in the separate room over there. But they're all the same thing. There's nothing special about them. So if you're charging me $300 a night, you know, there better be a pretty fancy breakfast and some, you know, concierge and those types of things. So, TL, you are most welcome for the live stream, my friend. Vulnerable road users, yes, thank you for clarifying that. You know, when you're on the live stream here and you're trying to think out loud and those and whatnot, sometimes you forget the abbreviations. TL, no driver has ever been killed by a cyclist or pedestrian. It's the driver's responsibility sort of be so hard, but most folks only focus on vehicles-to-vehicle crashes yielding a behavior. Yes, when we need to be more aware, exactly what TL said about cars hitting vulnerable road users, cyclists, and bicycles and pedestrians. And I would disagree with that. I'm sure that there have been a number of people who've been killed by e-scooters and e-bicycles and those types of things. And as well, these e-scooters, these things are crazy fast. I mean, especially you get some of the black ones, the personal ones that people own. Some of these crazy things are doing 40 miles an hour, 60 kilometers an hour. They are flying. And I don't know what kind of controls we're going to put in place to try and control some of this stuff, but it's coming, okay? Yeah, North Carolina, 15% of all crashes and deaths are involved vulnerable road users. Yes, and I suspect, TL, that's probably a conservative number. I suspect it's a bit higher than that. But again, it's going to vary slightly state to state, but 15% seems a little bit low. I mean, most of it is about 25%. But yeah, so road trips, summertime, we're coming up there. If you are doing road trips, no, you can figure out your destination, how far it's going to be and those types of things. Traffic signs. Pay attention to traffic signs when you're driving in areas that you have not been to before. The traffic signs are going to give you a great deal of information about the roadway, whether it curves to the right, whether it curves to the left. You know, there's an intersection ahead, any other kinds of intersection. And we're not just talking about traffic signs. Pay attention to the other kinds of signs, because if you're driving along a state road, for example, and you see ahead the world's largest ball of twine, right? There's a tourist attraction on the side of the road. Taking note of that sign that there's an attraction up ahead where there's the world's largest ball of twine. In the summertime, if you're there in June and July, there's going to be a lot of traffic coming in and off the roadway. So you're going to have to deal with that traffic and know that that traffic pattern is going to change according to those signs. So this is the other piece about take note of all the signs along the roadway, because that information is going to give you information about traffic patterns, interpreting traffic patterns, and understanding the actions of individual road users. Colton, e-scooters could go up in flames, and the lithium-ion battery is a nightmare to put out because it makes oxygen as it burns. Yeah, that's not good. Rob, when the right turns green at an intersection, should I go immediately or wait a moment to see if someone tries to run a red light? Rob, before proceeding in a car, left, center, right, left again. Okay? So before you move out into the intersection, left, center, right, left again. Okay? So it's going to be a slight pause, probably a second before you proceed. Epic, watching from Eastern Pennsylvania area, and for speed reduced signs, U.S. uses a pennant-shaped sign, and the new speed limit, other countries lack that. Instead of use a red background with reduced speed now. Yes. So, reduced speed ahead. This is the transition area from moving from a highway into a built-up area, a village or town or whatnot. And know that is a place where police officers often sit in a speed trap. It's not even a speed trap. Right? They're there. They're policing people, and people come off the highway and they're doing 50 miles an hour and they cruise into city and they're still doing 40 miles an hour when it's a 30 or a 25. You're putting people at danger in the built up area. So get your speed down at that transition. Okay. Make sure that when it goes from 50 to 30, that when you hit that 30 mile an hour sign, you're doing 30 miles an hour to keep yourself safe. So we're going to leave it there for today. Read your traffic signs, because remember, traffic signs are to driving what instructions are to an IKEA cabinet. Most people don't read traffic signs. They just look at the traffic in front of them and they do what other people are doing. That is not the way to make yourself a safer, smarter driver. Read the traffic signs, interpret traffic patterns, and understand the actions of individual road users according to those traffic signs, because they're going to give you a great deal of information. And not just the traffic signs, but all the other signs, because there's a tourist attraction as we're driving now in the summertime. It's going to change the way that traffic works. Elevator fan, can we see Stryker? I'll see if I can get him over here. All right, good luck in your driver's test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. There you go. Now your fans can see you. There you go. Can you see your fans? He's had 2 walks today, so he's pretty knackered. There you go. So, you say hi? No? You want to go back to sleep, don't you? Yeah, you're almost falling asleep just right here. Yeah, I think that he doesn't like the hot weather so much. So, there you go. Say hi to everybody. You're going to go back to sleep? All right. Thanks, everybody. Have an awesome night. Congratulations. You passed your test in the last couple of weeks. And if you have a test coming up in the next week or so, good luck on that. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great night. Bye now.